Hey guys, hope you're having another amazing day. So as you recall from my previous video, I showed you exactly how I initially set up the Reolink Duo V3, the TRACKMIX, and the video doorbell. I really wasn't planning on filming myself mounting the actual cameras until a third of the way through, where I quickly discovered how tricky it was, and how you guys can learn from some of my mistakes I made along the way. Now this video will focus on installing the Reolink cameras under my Soffits, which is an ideal place to mount a camera on a lot of North American houses. I really didn't find many videos out there that went into full detail, so hopefully this video can fill that void and help you get some ideas to install your cameras. The Reolink Wi-Fi doorbell was the easiest to install. It's pretty much a drop-in replacement for my broken Ring doorbell. It's only powered by the existing doorbell wires. This black angle mount is actually something I created folding some metal sheets together. The extra angle mounts they included wasn't as steep enough as I wanted. The end result is 100 times better than my Ring camera quality and captures everything from head to toe, including packages at my doorstep, which I really wanted in the first place. Now the Reolink Duo V3 POE, Power on Ethernet, is a 180-degree view camera unit, which was to replace one of my existing POE cameras. I found these cameras to fit perfectly under my front soffits facing the driveway, keeping them covered from rain and snow, which is really important. So what are these soffits I'm speaking of? If you look up, they're usually a row of interlocking aluminum panels. Some have holes like this one to let air pass through, wicking away moisture and allowing your house to breathe. To install anything to them is actually very difficult, as they're not exactly attached to anything but adjacent panels. They're all individually hard to remove, and each panel is oddly shaped. Yet on most houses in North America, it's the ideal placement under them for accent lighting and of course cameras. Like I mentioned earlier, I was a third of the way through installing the Duo V3, but don't worry, I'll backtrack here for you guys. In order to position the camera here, we have to mount its metal base to something solid. The soffits themselves are too thin and flexible for the weight of the Reolink cameras. It'll just shake and vibrate with the wind, so you can't mount directly onto it. So we'll have to find some sort of wood support underneath to screw into. And the best way to do that is to remove the actual soffit panel. Now luckily the one I needed to remove was the very first one from the edge, which was super easy. There's usually a screw underneath the front trim. Afterwards you can somewhat wiggle and pull the sheet out. If it's elsewhere from here, I suggest unscrewing each panel and sliding them down until you uncover your spot. So there's a large cavity underneath with some wood supports sticking out every 16 inches or so. We'll need to somehow screw into those for a solid mount. As you can definitely see, I fashioned this small wooden spacer to the support, and you'll see why. The soffits aren't actually flat against these supports at all. There's about an inch gap of empty space between the two surfaces. So to fill this space, I added a piece of scrap ply about a 3/4 inch thick. I also glued and stapled another 1/4 inch thick piece of wood panel to accommodate for the bottom shape of the soffit, so it can sit somewhat flush. As for the hole for the Ethernet cable, I'm using the existing one I made for my original camera. I used tuck tape to soften the edges, so that I don't shred the cable. In case you're wondering how to make the cleanest hole, you can use a step-down drill bit, which is usually used for sheet metal in HVAC jobs. This hole should be as large as the one in the metal base mount. Obviously, I'm using the same Ethernet cable I fished out to this point years ago. Now, that was an entire project in itself. You may need to do on your own if you haven't already. After screwing in the metal mounting plate, you can see that it's solid and not going anywhere. As for the short cable on the Reolink Duo 3, contrary to belief, we can actually feed it through the plastic mounting hole on the arm to keep things tidy. We can finally attach the Duo V3 camera by latching it onto the metal mounting plate. Unfortunately, here's where it went wrong. Now I thought this was a ball joint swivel, but turns out, if you mount the camera vertically this way, we physically can't adjust the angle downwards. Only upwards, which is useless. I feel this is a very poor design. Reolink really should have provided two versions of this arm, one for the bottom mount and one for the top. The only way to fix this is to reverse the mount backwards, which means the metal mounting plate has to be reversed too. I'll also need to move my spacer back as well, leaving enough space for my cable to go through. Well, as you can see, the mounting arm didn't leave the same amount of room when reversed, so now I couldn't even fit the camera up there. This means I had to make a brand new hole, maybe a couple inches closer to the front. And through the magic of YouTube, one has instantly appeared. Sorry guys, my frustration had already set in at this point, that I was thinking of not making this video at all. At least around this time I had help recording, and some emotional support. So here's my final take on this install. I really don't think Reolink meant for the Duo V3 to be hung vertically like this. Otherwise, they should have included a different type of arm. I believe they'd rather have you install the arm against the side fascia. But I know one day the camera will be removed, leaving permanent marks and holes on the surface that could appear too obvious. Soffit panels are quite forgiving to hide any mistakes, not to mention much easier and cheaper to replace. For the Reolink Trackmix, I decided to install it on the other side, replacing my old camera. I wanted to show you guys another method of installing onto the Soffit, which may take a bit more ingenuity, but a lot more flexible in terms of positioning. I think the majority of you will end up in a predicament where you can't get the camera where you want it due to the mount itself. And this was a great example, since the Reolink Trackmix camera is actually pretty heavy to begin with, so I think it needs extra support. To find a wood support inside the Soffit, you can sometimes press into it until you feel its general location, then drill some small pilot holes to confirm. It's exactly how I did it here years ago. I'll be using the existing hole I made from before. Trace out the locations of the wood support relative to the Soffit, as well as the mount on the camera. I found this to be super useful in finding out the exact positioning of the Trackmix much easier for what we're about to make here. We'll be making our own base that will be anchored to the wood support in the Soffit, giving us a lot more flexibility for positioning the camera, as well as providing a secure platform for our mount. You'll always want to test your cuts if they align together, as I found that the soffits and fascia are not always at right angles, so you may need to adjust your base on the go. As a test, I screwed into the wood support, staggering the screws a bit for some stability. As you can see, it's super rock solid and ain't going anywhere on this soffit. I'm really happy how this turned out. After making sure I'm good with the positioning, I wanted the base to blend in more with the soffit, so I began sanding and painting it. As for the TRACKMIX mount, it has the option to screw it in vertically or against something like a wall. Now the TRACKMIX camera is pretty heavy, and the mount itself is actually plastic for some reason. I think they should have continued it with metal. I didn't feel comfortable enough with the stability of the plastic mount, just having it hang off some screws above. So I decided to cut a piece of 2x4 so that I can support the TRACKMIX horizontally. I think this will give the camera the best stability it needs. Now this may be overboard, but I was concerned about the noise and vibrations off the soffit, so I used a bit of packaging sheet foam and stapled it to the underside of the base. Using our previous traceout of the TRACKMIX mount, I positioned exactly where I wanted the 2x4 backing to be. At this point, we can finally start screwing in the Reolink Trackmix into our base. I marked and drilled some pilot holes for the back mount, because I wanted to hand tighten the screws, otherwise I'd risk damaging the mount since it's all plastic. I also decided to use packaging foam to fill those cavities behind it, preventing any bugs from settling in there. Now it's worth noting that the top two screws are loose enough to initially hang the camera while screwing into the back 2x4. It's important that you don't tighten those top ones too much, as you'll want to leave enough room for expansion and contraction, since this is a wooden base with a plastic mount. And the same thing here, we can fill this gap with some packaging foam. Now that the hard work is done, we can finally connect the POE cable up and screw back our custom base into the soffit. Since we've already pre-fit everything from before, this should feel like the most rewarding part of the installation. And I gotta say it turned out better than I expected. All that's left now is just to play with it. So guys, I hope this video helps you if you're stuck installing security cameras under your house soffits. These Reolink cameras, such as the Duo V3 and the TRACKMIX, are really popular, but can be a challenge to mount at home. Of course, I gotta admit I'm no professional, so do so at your own risk. And if you like this video, hit that like button. comment below, I'd love to hear from you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to this humble YouTube channel, as it helps me create more content like this for you guys. Alright, cheers.